right. What's going on, guys? Larry Brown here on a wonderful Sunday morning with my co-host who just got off of his shift at the NYPD, Mr. Vaughn Larry. Hello there, Night Owl. How are you this morning?
Morning. What's up, everyone?
As you can see, I got my Thanos mug here.
Oh, nothing is fancy. It is what it is. It's caffeine.
Look, however you got to get it in, you got to get it in. So, gyms in New York, New Jersey, that whole tri-state area, y'all are really going through it right now. It seems that your gyms are going to stay closed while the rest of the country is kind of opening up theirs. So, Vaughn, you're based in New York. Tell us how the overall vibe of the fitness community is up there with the news that you guys aren't going to open just yet.
The fitness community in New York is really going through it. Most public gyms, and by public I mean businesses, they are mandated to remain closed at least until the end of phase. Which phase? It's my producer in the background. At least till the end of phase 5. We are currently about to move ahead with phase 3. So that gives us a forecast of gyms being open very late July, early August, after gyms being closed all this time. So as a result, the fitness community, and by that I mean CrossFitters, boxers, martial artists, recreational lifters, whether it's powerlifting, bodybuilding, or just lifting and training for your own health, have all been hampered tremendously by this closures. Now, they said the closures are due in part to concerns about the air conditioning system, the filtration system, the air circulation in these enclosed spaces, as well as the sanitary measures taken to ensure that equipment is properly sanitized to ward off spread of coronavirus. So that's the excuse being given right now by the powers that be. And as a result of that, the delay in gym openings have had people in the tri-state area who are fitness oriented really at a loss and frustrated beyond belief. Not to mention the fact that a lot of these business owners are suffering tremendously, and it is unclear whether there will be relief provided to them by the government, who is forcing them to remain closed all this time.
That is, so I saw an article yesterday. I don't remember the source. I think it was either Wall Street Journal or Newsweek or something that says that explained that gyms, there's not been an uptick of COVID coming out of gyms. I know here in Nebraska, outside of the chain gym that we have called Genesis, that used to be 24-hour fitness, Iron Heaven is one that I frequent. Bob's Fitness is the other. Both are privately owned gyms, members 24/7, 365. They have stepped up their cleaning measures dramatically to the point of even hiring an extra cleaning service to come in and clean the gym while no one's staffed there, right? Which they already did, but they doubled down on it. So they're cleaning multiple times a day. New rules and measures have been instituted to keep sanitation at a maximum. No shirts off, no training with your shirts off, stay covered up. I've seen quite a few people with masks on in the gym. Whether you agree with it or not is neither here nor there. But at the end of the day, there could be measures put out to protect people from COVID and get people back in the gyms. But for some strange oddball reason, they're not. And it's not even a strange oddball reason. Here's another fact of the matter, that gyms don't make money like bars and restaurants do.
Exactly.
Right? We're seeing that in Miami and in Florida in general, whose damn near entire economy is based off of tourism. So to see that you guys, a major metropolitan city, if not the major metropolitan city in the U.S., is not opening up, and the government is absolutely inept in putting any type of measure out there to say, hey, this is what needs to happen for you guys to open up, is pretty disheartening. And what is really pissing me off is that they're moving the goalposts.
Exactly.
They're absolutely moving the goalposts. So if Governor Cuomo is watching, if his brother is watching, I highly doubt it. Get y'all head out y'all ass and get these people back in the gym, and let's make our society healthy and strong.
Now, these are the same people, mind you, who will go on a soapbox and talk about the obesity rate in this country, how it's out of control, how kids need to eat healthier in school, how kids need to exercise and move more, how we as Americans and people living in America need to exercise and move more, control our weight and our calories, and be healthy. But at the same time, you are depriving all of us, most of us, of the means to be able to do so. And they're also the same people who will tell you there is a direct correlation between obesity and all these other underlying factors which come from not taking care of yourself, not going to the gym, not training, not eating properly, and COVID-related mortality. So how can you justify two things, these two factors? They're factors which make it worse when you do get COVID, or if you can get COVID, it affects your immune system, and factors that will cause you to die from it by not training and then keep gyms closed. So, I mean, a lot of things have to be rectified in regards to this hypocrisy, quite frankly, is what it is.
And I just need to address something too. And this is what's another thing that is that's very frustrating. So we have this sect of people. There's us, me and you, and people like us, like-minded individuals that say, open up the gyms, people need the gyms, we got to train. Then you have this sect of society that's like, oh, well, you can work out at home and you can get an effective workout and blah, blah, blah. I find that absolutely disrespectful to people because you don't know what people, one, you don't know what people are going through.
Right.
Right. They may want that socialization factor at the gym. Right.
Exactly.
They may want that socialization factor as much as people don't like it. People talk in the gym.
Right.
It is what it is.
And then people, you know,
we're social animals.
Exactly.
And then another thing that's frustrating is that the same people that are saying that you can work out at home. I've done the home workout thing. I've had no equipment. All right, no equipment. Tell me why the fuck should I keep doing 600 air squats and 345 fucking push-ups? Like, what am I doing at this point?
Exactly.
So, like, this is absolutely, I find it absolutely disrespectful when people be like, well, you can work out at home and y'all just proved y'all don't need a gym. No, bitch, we do need a gym. Shut the fuck up.
I'm going to add to that. Not only is a gym an environment for you to, first of all, not everybody has space in their home to work out. I mean, my wife and I, we have a pretty small space. It's just the two of us and a cat. So we don't need a lot of space, and we try to be minimalist in all aspects of our life. So we don't have a huge space for us to be, doing Cirque du Soleil in the middle of our living room. And like you said, when you do go to a gym, there's not only the socialization aspect there, but you get the sense of accomplishment. You get a sense of stress relief. Lower your cortisol. Cortisol is good. Lowered cortisol is good for the immune system. It boosts your ability to fight off diseases, viruses, and there's a whole cascade of positive health benefits that comes from not only the socialization aspect, but the endorphin release, the GLUT4 translocation, the associated positive, hopefully your positive nutritional intake because you are training. Because let's face it, a lot of people, if they're not training, they're not eating properly, because that quite often goes hand in hand, and it is difficult to do one without engaging in the other. So,
exactly.
You're just hurting people by keeping these gyms closed. I don't understand how this is not widely understood, and how reopening gyms and places that people go to get healthy and stay healthy wasn't made an immediate priority and a protocol set forth in how to do so. I just also want to say my building complex has a private gym that is now opened, and there's social distancing. Every other cardio machine is closed off or shut down. There are signs up there that remind you to engage in social distancing. They provide wipes to sanitize the equipment. People are reminded to be mindful and community oriented so that you're allowed to continue to have at this point is what is considered a privilege. And people, for the most part, honor that, and we police ourselves. Surely that's going to be the case when gyms open. But the governor and the government right now is picking and choosing losers on a scale that is almost reminiscent of communism or socialism.
Is Chicago was in phase 3 for a long time. Gyms were shut down for a long time. And then they put out guidelines of what needs to happen. Now, we've discussed this before on the show many times that like different economies, different populations require different approaches.
Yes.
So, but generally, we know who goes to the gyms. No drop-ins, members only.
Yes.
Cut the occupancy to 50% or 25% at any given time. Like, this could have been avoided totally. So it's like we threw everything at the wall. What I don't appreciate about the whole thing too is that we have social distancing fed down our throats, right? Masks, all this XYZ, and this will work. All right. Why couldn't scientists and the scientific community say, we don't know what will work, but let's try this out for a while to see if it will work?
Right.
So I don't know. But since we're talking training, this is a good segue. So for those that don't know the following name, Marc Lobliner. Marc Lobliner is a
CEO.
He CEO, does everything.
You gotta pop your pecs when you say that, like he does in the videos.
Oh God, I'm not popping my pecs. I'm not popping my pecs. They're actually still sore from last week's workout anyway. He's a CEO from the Chicagoland area, so that's how I know of him as well. Is the head of Tiger Fitness.
Correct. The #1 Shopify site in the world, actually, if you actually look it up.
No shit.
Yeah, I was experimenting with some drop shipping stuff, and I was looking up some stats or whatever, and Tiger Nutrition is always on the top of the list, if not always #1 in terms of, because they do all this stuff basically as a drop shipping business, and Mark is killing it day in, day out.
Really?
Yep. No joke.
I didn't know that. Well, he used to live in Illinois. He now lives in Brentwood, Tennessee. House built, but he put out a tweet that
yes, I have it up right now.
Controversial for a lot of people.
I have it up right now.
Yeah, I have it up right now too. So if you want to read it,
be my guest.
All right. So it says, an at Marc MARC Lobliner LOBLINER if you want to see the tweet or his Instagram profile yourself. It says, if men lifted weights, ate adequate protein, took responsibility for their actions, raised their kids, participated in combat sports, we would not be in the societal issue we are now. Men have become weak. With weak men comes a weak and fragile society. So, this is loaded. It could be loaded. Oh, I hear something. What do you hear?
I hear people getting triggered from all across the land.
Okay.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. So
right
it's
now.
not that I disagree with the message. It's the fact that I'm not the biggest Marc Lobliner fan. I have my reasons. I won't go into my reasons, to be honest with you. But I think he hits a good point here. So, and you spoke more ad nauseum about this, and you're more passionate on the subject than I am. Like, I read the tweet and I kind of like, okay, that's cool. I kind of agree with it. I want you to dissect it.
So it's kind of taboo or counterculture right now to consider yourself a men's rights advocate or whatever, because it implies that you're in support of the patriarchy, you're in support of oppression to women. As a result of that, you may be in favor of racism, sexism, anti-LGBTQ-ism, and all of that stuff. So to say that you're a men's rights advocate in this particular day and age, especially in the age of cancel culture, is fraught with negative consequences that you may have to fight off. And what I mean by fighting off is on a keyboard, because most of these people fighting this fight are limp-wristed pansies who would never, actually engage in physical combat. But that's neither here or there. So in terms of Marc's tweet, where it hits a spot with me, because there's a large segment of men who have to remain silent on this sort of thing, because it will put you at odds with the current culture's groupthink accepted way of doing things. And when he says that if men ate protein, lifted weights, engaged in combat sports, raised their kids, and took responsibility for their actions, that call to a guy like me kind of says that we have to do things that kind of sets us apart as men. We have a place, we have a role in society. It's not to speak, he didn't say anything about what women's roles are. He didn't touch that subject. So if you're going to add in between the lines that he's saying that means women's roles are not A, B, or C, or can't be X, Y, or Z, then you're editorializing something you have no right to editorialize. Read what the man says and don't add words to it. He says, ate adequate protein. Most Americans, the standard American diet is devoid of protein and rich with carbs, and people get to be fat, lazy, sedentary fucks as a result of that. So that's, to me, as a man, that's what I heard from that. Took responsibility for their actions. Society is well known for placing obstacles in people's way, whether it be along racial, gender orientation, sexual, whatever your inclination, your creed, religious, whatever it is, there will be obstacles placed in your way. Some people have more obstacles than others. That's just life. That's always been the way it is since the dawn of history. I challenge you to tell me to point out to a time where that wasn't the case. Less and less so, actually, in this day and age. It's less and less the case, to be quite honest with you, than it has ever been. So, raise their kids. That means being as far as you can, because not all people have the same households get split, people get separated from the children, divorce, military, whatever, but have as much of an impact in the rearing direction of your children's moral upbringing, guidance as possible. Don't just leave it to the woman to be the sole person raising, guiding, and instilling values in these children. And especially when it comes to some of the more physical things that I guess men would normally be associated with doing, whether it be having that child engage in sports or just whatever, because the need for physicality is there when it comes to it. And that is a role or a more comfortable place that I notice, everybody has noticed, to be quite honest with you, men are more capable of providing for children. Participating in combat sports. If you have never been touched, if you have never been placed in a situation physically in your life where, as a means of practice, your safety is challenged, you are in a situation where you are being stressed by another person attempting to overcome you physically, and you have to overcome that, then you kind of don't know what you are truly capable of, because that is literally the life or death, visceral, way back in our DNA sort of situation where we learn to overcome obstacles, being hunted by the big bad beast in primeval times. That's where we get a lot of our fear, fight or flight responses from, that actual physical act. And the only way we can, there's no more saber-toothed tigers out there. The only way we can honestly recreate that sort of action in our lives in modern day time is engaging in combat sports. And through that, we will manifest what I consider our best selves and our ability to overcome a lot of situations. So if you're not engaging in some sort of combat sports, boxing, jiu-jitsu, martial arts, whatever, then you're really not tapping into that sort of primeval ability that you have to overcome situations. And all of that is sorely needed in today's man, because to be honest with you, today's man is becoming a bunch of, I don't want to use the word, but
a lot of men today are becoming bitches.
And masculinity is being stripped away from us on, I believe, a very planned level.
Yeah.
In order to kind of eradicate everything masculine, which, by the way, has built society from the days of old, from the very first time we crawled out of the primeval to the primordial ooze until this very day. And we're trying to reverse nature, and to me, that's only going to result further and further in the decay of society. So that's my rant.
It's funny that you bring up combat sports. It literally just popped in my mind. An author that I read a lot, or at least try to consume a lot of his thoughts on leadership. Have you ever heard of Jocko Willink? I think
no.
Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, they head up Echelon Front out on the East Coast, which specializes in leadership training. So if you Google a lot of this stuff, I know a lot of football teams have went through their type of training. He's written a couple of books, the most popular one being Extreme Ownership. I have a copy of it, something that you should probably get. I may even gift it to you. Let me get my next payday straight. But he is an advocate of men and anybody that consumes his content participating in combat sports. Almost in every book that I purchased from him, he preaches the effectiveness of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and how it teaches you, if you allow it, if you absorb it, it can teach you about life.
Absolutely.
So he's very much a proponent and would definitely agree with this aspect of this particular tweet by Marc, that yes, men should participate in combat sports.
So another thing that I kind of wanted to touch on as far as Marc's tweet is concerned is he says men have become weak, and with weak men comes a weak and fragile society. Are we not in a day and age where we're seeing the results of there not being the kind of guiding hand that men can provide in households playing itself out, especially in vulnerable populations where that guidance is now bereft in the household, or household is bereft of that guidance. The family structure has been destroyed, and as a result of that, children in that household, children in that community are becoming more susceptible to the negative influences of society, such as racism, etc. If there is a strong guiding hand, you're not going to eliminate the effects of racism, but what you can see is a more of a steering away from these factors. Kids joining gangs, and kids not kind of getting jobs, not because a man in a household is going to make gangs disappear or jobs more available in a minority community or any of these things, but what you will have is you'll have a tighter nuclear family unit that can result in the dispersion of these factors more and more in society, and thus society from the family structure on up tends to be a little bit stronger, a lot stronger, to be quite honest with you. Because if you look at most of the guys that I arrested, most of the people who have criminal contact or negative contact with the criminal justice system come from single parent homes. That's undisputed. You cannot argue that fact. And you will see that when it comes to single family homes, people in those households, especially young men, are more and more vulnerable to the negative impact of society. They can't control racism. They can't control sexism. They can't control a lot of things that negative aspects of society that kind of rains down on you. But you can't control how a family is structured, regardless of whether that family is separated or not. And it's even better if that family is still a cohesive unit. But once again, Marc kind of hits the nail on the head with that. So that's pretty much all I had to say about that. I mean, a lot of people will be triggered, but you know.
Here's something that we said we probably discuss. So I'm kind of catching you off guard. the personal responsibility that a lot of these young men that come from single parent households make.
Yes.
We've looked at videos and seen things that people should know better than to do.
Yes.
Right? So at what point do we stop blaming the system of racism that is insidious and is everywhere, and at some point start taking personal responsibility for our actions? Now, I know it's probably not the cool black guy thing to do right now.
Right. It's not.
Because systematic racism and all the other variants of racism is up on a pedestal right now. But at some point, are we to say we need to stop doing a lot of shit that we're doing?
Now, more than ever, since the emphasis is on systemic, structural, whatever else, racism, the onus has been put on those systems to change. And for the longest time in history, in America, post-slavery, post-Reconstruction, post-Jim Crow, post-Civil Rights era, leading into the modern day, those things have lessened over time because of the struggles of people who have been out there protesting, pointing out the fact that these things exist, or whatever. And so you're now today we're faced with two things. You either entirely discuss how these issues, this issue of racism affects you, or you entirely ignore it and you try to discuss how personal responsibility can affect you. You don't have to do either. I think as intelligent people, we could agree, yes, systemic structural racism exists, institutional racism exists, and we need to do better in terms of abolishing it and making it so that it doesn't affect people more. You're never going to entirely abolish it, by the way. I got news for you. This is America. One of the things...
It's going to be here. It's racism and oppression is ingrained in the DNA of this country. It is not going away.
And that doesn't mean that I hate America, by the way. I love this country. Let's be realistic about it. It's just never going to go away. It's always going to be there at some point. Now, when it comes to... I can't control much of that. No one can. The people who can have to do so over time. It's not going to be a quick fix. But what you can control on a daily basis and own up to is your personal conduct and how that personal conduct interfaces with the racist system, the so-called racist system. Yes, parts of that system is racist. Now, your personal conduct will have a direct impact on how that system kind of overtakes you. Not all the time, because, by the way, you could be doing everything right. You could have a PhD, a doctorate. You could be the most law-abiding, upstanding citizen in the world, and you still will come into contact with racism on a far more frequent basis than someone who isn't a minority or a person of color.
Which is what a lot of you sedity-ass black folks do, but that's a whole other conversation for that day.
Exactly. So now, so that's the point where you're like, you know what? God damn it, I've done everything right. I'm an upstanding citizen. I've had all these accomplishments in my life, and I still have problems with the system. The system needs to be changed because I'm doing everything right that every American should do, and I can't get a fair shake in this country. Or quite often, when something happens because of this racist system, it really impacts me in a negative way. Cool. You cannot be that person, that guy, that female who lives a life completely devoid of personal responsibility and always complains that the system, who, by the way, that's what its job is meant to do, is to keep you in a certain place. If you're doing everything that system wants you to do, you cannot complain that I'm being kept in my place, I'm being oppressed because of this racial system. What have you done to overcome those barriers? And if the answer is very little to nothing, and let's be honest, take a look at your life, take a look at the people you surround yourself with, take a look at the choices you have made, and don't tell me that all of your choices, every single choice you've ever made in your life was because you've had limited opportunities. Because as an immigrant to this country, I'm not trying to hear that. My parents came from a country to this country for opportunity. So for you to sit up here and tell me there's no opportunity in this country whatsoever, and you only made choices that were available to you, I'm not buying it. So that's how I feel. I feel like personal responsibility right now is kind of being swept under the rug, and we are only concentrating on systemic, cultural, institutional, structural racism, which is going to always lead us in a situation where it's never going to change completely. So now what's left for us to do to kind of overcome these obstacles? And no one's talking about that right now. So, no one's going to solve that problem. That part of the problem needs to be solved. How much of it is in balance? Like, do we need to solve more of the systemic stuff or more of the personal responsibility stuff? That's a debate I'm willing to have. And that debate ultimately comes down to the individual. What are you doing as an individual to be able to overcome this obstacle, the personal part versus the part that's always going to be there? Or what are we doing to strike down that part so that everybody, which is a very lofty goal in this country, it's never going to happen. So I think right now the best thing you could do as an individual in this country, especially if you're a person of color, is to kind of bulletproof yourself to the extent that you can. And when those measures fail, that's when we need to take a look at the part that absolutely needs to be changed. And more through the course of history has changed. We're not the same place we used to be race-wise in this country in the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s. We're not. We've made strides, not far enough, but we've made them. So those things are changing, but I think personal accountability is kind of on the downfall.
I think, and it's funny that you should mention that. I think that people also lack things that they're passionate about for them to be cognizant of personal responsibility. What I mean by that?
Yes.
Competitive bodybuilder, right?
Right.
Or at least I try to be. Every decision I make that particular day, that particular hour, that particular minute has an overarching effect on what I do as a competitive bodybuilder. Meaning everything that I do at that particular moment in time, the decision I make, whether I'm going to have a cheat meal, whether I'm going to get up and go to the gym, that has a profound effect on what happens to me on stage. So in that, people need something that will help keep them on the straight and narrow. And what I normally get agitated about is that there's not enough people around showing them or exposing them to different things that'll keep them on the straight and narrow. And then that goes back to the male breakdown of the household. So
you mean influences? You mean because we're in the social media generation,
right.
So a lot of social media revolves around influencers and their ability to motivate, influence, and kind of guide people in terms of behaviors they need to do to accomplish the goal that the influencer themselves has accomplished. If you don't have that influencer, guess what? Parents are the original influencers. And if you don't have those influencers setting a strong example in a household, showing you how personal responsibility first and foremost, hey, clean your room, that's your room. Hey, pick up after yourself, that's your stuff. Hey, do your homework, that's your responsibility. That's some of the first thing that happens in a family structure that kind of guides your success as an individual, is you owning up to your own stuff and becoming a capable person in that small unit of society. And then when you go out into society, that's a lot more complicated. How does your sense of personal responsibility, your accomplishments, your behavior, your civic duty, your carrying out of your civic responsibilities, your assertion of your rights as an individual in that society, how is that affected by some of the barriers against you? But you need to know that you have to develop this sense of personal responsibility and accountability in order to kind of accurately judge how much of a barrier is there. Because if you're an irresponsible person, you're going to see that wall as much higher than a person who is responsibility and has managed time and time again to overcome those obstacles. So you kind of see it a different way, which is why I hate to see that the argument is always framed in terms of that racism, structural racism, and the obstacles those represent is the absolute barrier in this country right now. And that's the biggest thing that kind of affects life for people of color or minorities. as opposed to personal responsibility and becoming adroit, adept, and successful at overcoming these barriers as they come along. So the conversation is a bit skewed in this country right now, and personal responsibility is taking a huge hit because, like you said, it's in vogue right now to just be a victim and not a victor. That mindset right now ingraining into people that you could only be a victim of the system, and no matter what you do until the system is overthrown, that you will never be able to kind of live a normal life. What does that mean? Overthrown how? Violently? There's gonna be a violent insurrection to overcome what? The educational system? How are you going to violently overthrow the educational system? How are you going to violently overthrow the economy? How are you going to violently overthrow the police and government and all those structures? It is a kraken's tentacles, multiple tentacles of this system that affects you. And we are not an organized, or these causes are not organized and effective and financed and educated and structured enough to overcome all of these things. But you as an individual could kind of weave your way through some of these tentacles if you take the responsibility, educate yourself, and kind of empower yourself in order to do so. And then guess what? Each one teach one. Reach behind you, put someone up who has their hand up. You understand? And that way, as a people, we slowly and surely overcome it. Because you know what? The bombing of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, those people weren't given anything. Those people as individuals worked to build a society that had to be destroyed with a concentrated effort.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it is much more possible for individuals in society today, people of color, to build these sort of alliances, much more possible now than it was for those people back then. And they did it back in the, 1920s? Like post-war.
The bar of entry is so low for success right now. Is I'm not gonna say it's no excuse, but your excuses are limited as to why you can't be a success. And there's no blueprint for it.
Right.
There's no blueprint for it. You're just gonna have to throw shit against the wall and see what sticks. But you can't just use one piece of fringe society, which i.e. Extreme racism, systematic racism, all that, as your sole stopping point, like you've said, for your own personal limit of success. So, if I'm making any sense,
no,
I need another cup of coffee.
It makes sense, and I'm sure we could expand on this for hours to come. And
I'm pretty sure once I put this podcast up, there's going to be people that will label us as coons.
Absolutely, and I'm fine with that, because you know what? If a coon means thinking that I'm not always a victim, then so be it. I mean, I'll be whatever name you want to designate me with all day long.
I mean, we're definitely not full-on Hodge twins, but I mean, we stand our ground.
God.
Yeah. Well, in any event.
Exactly. Let's move on. I just want to make one final point. My black power isn't your black power. You understand what I'm saying? My interpretation and way to become a successful black person in this country isn't always the same that a lot of people have been programmed to believe is the one way they need to, especially nowadays in this woke society. Like, okay, a lot of you guys just learned 3 weeks ago about structural racism, institutional racism, etc. I have been living this fight, fighting this fight on many levels through the government, as a representative for the state senate, as an advocate, as a grassroots organizer of campaigns for black politicians for decades now. You know, and my understanding of this process has evolved a great deal. And I see more and more that relying on the government and relying on someone to come and save you is not the way to do it. And personal responsibility has always been the primary driver to success for any person, especially a black person in this country. So if I advocate that more than I advocate for waiting for the system to change, then I have a great reason for that. And if it doesn't mesh with someone else's version of black power or what ideology I need to embrace, we could have that discussion. But if that makes me a coon or a sellout or a Tom or a bootlicker or whatever, then you know what? At the end of the day, we can always compare accolades and compare successes. And if your way of making yourself a victim is more successful in this country for yourself or people in your community, then you know what? I'll be willing to say, you're right, you win. Until such time, I'll keep fighting the fight the way I see fit.
And there it is. Now moving on to bodybuilding. Not a whole lot to actually talk about this week. Tampa Pro March is on. Hunter Liberata is probably the most dangerous new pro on the circuit that we have seen in a long time. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say his pro debut is going to be much like Phil Heath's.
I was just thinking that.
I don't really see anybody beating this gentleman. However, I shared his photo with you. I thought he was an Aceto trainee, but he's not. Joe Mackey.
Joe Mackey.
He's still with Dominic Cardone.
Okay.
Who himself is a pro card.
You mean Joel Mackey?
Out of Texas.
Out of Texas. Yeah. Is his name not Joel?
No, it's Joe. Just Joe.
Joe. Okay.
Yeah, it's just Joe.
Okay.
Sponsored by Gasp. This dude is a genetic masterpiece.
He's a young Johnny Jackson, is he not?
I wouldn't even say a young Johnny. He does have some Johnny Jackson type features. He's very weirdly put together, and I don't mean that to be demeaning, but he's put together in a way where it's just like you really can't take your eyes off of him. It's like he's full, he's round, he doesn't really have any weak spots. I think he's this generation's Chris Cormier.
Okay.
You know, he's well balanced. I don't see anything overpowering. Do I think he could be a world beater at some point? Yeah. I don't think right now, but I mean, I think he'll definitely be competitive at the Tampa. I believe he's doing the Tampa. I'm not too sure. I really don't see anybody toppling Hunter Liberata.
No.
His dad is working with him on his posing. You know, and I hate to be the cheerleader for the Hunter Liberata fan club, but I'm the cheerleader for the Hunter Liberata fan club. But Joe Mackey is somebody that people definitely need to watch a bit closer.
Now here's the thing, on stage, I think because we've been seeing pictures like Dominic Cardone. I've known him since he was 15 years old. I know him and his dad since the first day they set foot in the gym. I've known Dominic a long time. He's a really good dude. He's an excellent coach. The pics he's been posting of Joe, I don't think those pics do him justice. I think once that kid Joe steps on a stage and you start comparing him to people and you start seeing how ridiculously round and full he is, especially if he dials that condition into full on stage level conditioning, I think he can give Liberata more of a run for his money than you and I suspect, because it's an entirely different thing to post gym pic. Listen, I was never a gym pic guy. I don't know whatever happened on those stage, those lights or whatever. Thank God for the stage. I've always looked better on the stage than I've looked walking around or in the gym, and I think that's going to be the case for Joel Mackey. I think he has the dimensions and quality to his muscle with some tan on, in the right lights, with the right conditioning that can kind of overcome the very impressive photos we've been seeing from Hunter Liberata so far. So I think that might be a little bit more of a run for the money than you suspect at this time. But there's only one way to tell that, and that's going to be when they start comparing people.
And seeing as that we're on the subject of shows, a couple of shows kicked off. IPE. I don't even know what IPE stands for, but it's a natural federation.
Yep.
They kicked off their season in Minnesota. Couple of NPC shows, one in Oklahoma. They kicked off the NPC season too. So it's good to see a lot of these guys that have thrived through this quarantine.
And gals, I want to give a shout to John Gorman. He's a prep coach. He's affiliated with a lot of Jason Theobald. He does a podcast with Jason Theobald. He's an excellent coach. He coaches a lot of natural competitors. And he had during the show, let's see, this was I'll tell you the show. It was the shows this the NPC. It was an NPC show, and he put out some quality, winning second place, first place competitors. And I mean, we're talking about ladies masters. We're talking about this guy gets females over the age of 40, some of them natural, into conditioning like I've never seen. So, and he's been saying that these people have been grinding through the pandemic, and they showed up. Yeah, the Miss Natural is the Mr. and Miss Natural Minnesota.
Okay.
So we're talking about polygraph tested as well as urine tested shows.
Mm-hmm.
And John Gorman, God bless you, John, if you ever take a listen to the podcast. But a lot of quality competitors showed up to that show. So, you know, the NPC is still cranking out some shows, natural shows, and non-tested shows that I expect to be coming more and more back to back. This particular show, thank God, you know, it went off without a hitch. People showed up. We're in great shape, and you know, we can have some qualifiers for nationals this year if this keeps up.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, with nationals being in December, I do expect a rule change where I think it's already happened, where if you place top 5 in the show, you can go on to nationals this year.
That's fine. And you know what? This is the year to do it. I would normally tell a person, if you qualified in a local show, 5th place, not to do nationals that year, but give it a year. Nah, this is a year where if you qualify for nationals, do nationals this year.
Just do it, because you'll never know if that experience comes in handy, and you'll know the feeling of what, if you do it correctly.
Yes.
You'll know the feeling of what it means to be like Jay Cutler and his buddies say, a full-time bodybuilder, because it's a complete bitch. It's a complete bitch. I've been trying to get my meals down, and even working at home for me, it's a little more difficult than I had expected. So I got a full day, or at least a half a morning of meal prep. I'm about to clean off this grill when we're done here. I'm about to put a load of chicken breast, load of steak on, because all I really want to do is just cut it up, put it in a bed of rice, microwave it, put some barbecue sauce on it, and eat it and call it good.
Yeah.
John Gorman is actually going to have a seminar sometime in September in Missouri, I think, with Jason. So I'm not too sure.
Yeah, see, the wife and I have always been discussing, and hopefully things are a little bit more conducive to travel in our schedules. We've been definitely thinking about broadening our knowledge on a lot of nutritional, hormonal, digestive aspects of nutrition, and attending one of these seminars. My wife, Jason's has actually coached both of us at separate points in time. My wife, he's coached my wife, he's coached me, got us both in tremendous shape both times. He's one of the best coaches in this industry, one of the best teachers of coaching principles in this industry, in my opinion. So that's definitely something we have on our radar. And if, inshallah, we'll be able to go check that one out. And plus, we've never been down to Missouri, so right? Yeah. So that's definitely something we're looking to go check out.
You know, I've never been a big seminar person.
We're starting to be. You know why? Because I'm looking at retirement from law enforcement in another year or two, and coaching is definitely one of the things I plan on continuing and expanding that business. And I want to keep my knowledge base current and expand it every year. So that's definitely why I plan on checking that out.
And you know, and I went to a seminar. I've went to a couple of seminars, but the one specifically for bodybuilding I went to in 2018. It was with Eugene Teo and John Meadows.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, that was a very good one. So that's why I'd probably like to go down to St. Louis for that particular one. I know one of John's clients, she actually trains at Bob's Fitness in Omaha, or in Bellevue, Nebraska, rather. And she speaks very, very highly of him. Jason, I've known for years from a bodybuilding message boards.
Yeah, the message board. That's why I first ran into Jason. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I know a couple of his clients back home in Chicago. But it's something that I posted that a lot of people didn't get mad over it. But I said that you have to look at the coaches that are constantly expanding their knowledge base, right? Chris Aceto, Chad Nichols, George Farah, those guys are once in a million, and they kind of stick to their own lane. They go with what they know, and they do variants of it. And I can't argue with the results. Multiple time Olympia champions. But for the majority of us, i.e., people who are not formally educated in nutrition, in training, I'm not sure what your degree is in, but mine is so far away from nutrition and training, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All I got is in the trenches experience, but I don't have the client base to prove that my methods work, at least not right now.
But also I mean, I'm not taking away anything from these guys that you just mentioned. They're great coaches, but they are working with the genetic elite. I mean, I've seen John Gorman and Jason turn 50-year-old grandmas into freaks on stage.
So,
when you can do that, that's a testament to you continually updating your knowledge and skill set and applying it to the everyman.
And you always have to expand your knowledge base, because if you're trying to be a prep coach, if you're trying to be a programming coach, if you're trying to be an overall body coach, there are numerous aspects of that you may not have thought of, that you may not have been exposed to. I know, for one, my friend who runs a gym up here went to a seminar that had Jason Theobald involved with it, and it basically talked about carving up your clients according to blood glucose levels, something that he had never thought of up until this point.
Right.
So he did that for one of his clients at nationals. His client placed top 5 at nationals, was very, very competitive, and will be very, very competitive this year. But he's already known a lot, Precision One coach, nutrition certified, but he expanded his knowledge by going to a seminar. So I think I say all of that to say that you have to look for these coaches that are always expanding their knowledge base.
Yes.
That are constantly, we're not asking you to get a fucking scientist, but what we're also saying is get somebody who ain't too stupid.
All right. And you know what? I give everybody who they kind of follow nutrition in terms of their education, and they get all these degrees. There's something to be said from the guy like Jason. Jason's a trained lawyer. Jason was in finance before that. Jason learned nutrition on his own. And I will go take a Jason seminar over most nutritional PhD seminars out there, like 90% of them, with the exemption of with the exception of like Lane Norton or someone really steeped in the bodybuilding culture who knows how to apply that specific brand of nutritional application to people. Because some of the stuff Jason does, man, it's hormonal, digestive, it's rest and recovery stuff. It just literally will take your coaching to the next level. Your understanding of the basic mechanisms of the body, number one, and how to apply those to not one size fits all. Yes, caloric principle in 80% of the cases when you're talking about competitive athletes who have a bunch of hormonal and digestive issues, there has to be a little bit more of an even mix of how you adjust their rest, their recovery, specific aspects of their diets to further their progression as a competitive athlete that I think Jason has excelled at far beyond any normal academic in the nutritional field. So you have to continue. And he did that on his own. He learned this stuff on his own.
Here's a funny thing that I found. Eugene Teo, Coach Eugene Teo on Instagram, if you haven't followed him, he was a communications major at his university in Australia.
Right.
And he's learned everything that he's done on his own. And Do you find that people who do self-learning and self-mastery are a little bit better than those who are dyed-in-wool prep coaches from experience?
Yes. Why? Because sometimes a lot of academic stuff includes a lot of fluff that is not really applicable on a in the trenches. See, when you're self-taught, you're getting right to the meat and potatoes of what works, right? And it may be to your detriment that you don't want a lot of the academic principles behind it to kind of put your knowledge into context. But what you do learn is on a day-to-day basis what works with clients, what you can do to make that client better. So yeah, I think I would definitely take a coach who's more steeped in day-to-day in the trenches nutrition rather than taking someone with, and I don't mean to knock, oh my God, a PhD is such a great accomplishment, but if you have a bachelor's or a PhD in nutrition, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a better coach than someone who just has a lot of self-taught knowledge of the subject. So yeah, I would take someone self-taught with the ability to prove and show me their work, rather than someone, I've been just got my bachelor's or my PhD, and now I'm a nutritionist. Let me see your clients. Better than this guy's. What do you want me to tell you?
Very interesting. I just thought it was a question I'd ask, seeing as that you're a coach, you work a full-time job, and your background is so far. Yes, you're an IFBB pro, but like your formal background is so far away from nutrition.
I went to school for political science. I worked for attorneys and elected officials before I even became a police officer. And so it is so far removed from this. This is something I've just recently thrown myself into. I mean, over the years, yeah, basic aspects of nutrition, but more and more, reading books, ebooks, online seminars, and now trying to go to check out more and more seminars. And mind you, I turned 45 at the end of the year, and I'm at the beginning of my expanding my my knowledge. I've already been having great results with people, and I will continue to do so with some of the knowledge that I kind of absorb from myself from other people who have been doing it themselves and absorbing this knowledge on their own as well, outside of the academic setting. I don't think you always need the academic setting to learn. College. I know how you feel about college degrees, but kind of apply that to the academic aspects of nutritional coaching, et cetera. I don't think you kind of need to go through all of that to be a good coach.
No, definitely not. And some of the nutritionists I've talked to from a certain school here in Nebraska, and leaves a lot to be desired. But we're coming up on our hour. So podcast you're listening to, books you're reading.
Books I'm reading. I'm a nerd, and I'm doing audiobooks right now because it's just easier for me to sit at my desk and at work and listen to an audiobook. I'm listening to Star Wars Legend Darth Revan. I'm beginning to dabble in Pimsleur French because my wife is supposed to help me learn French. My wife is Persian. She speaks fluent French, Farsi, and English. I barely speak fluent English. So I got a little bit to learn. So I'm starting to learn some French. I listen to my Star Wars books. I always have an ear out for. Well, I have the RP Strength book.
I have their RP Diet.
Yep, RP Diet.
Yep, I got that too. I haven't started yet, but I got it.
I have their ebook. I have John Gorman's Ask a Diet Coach book. I have two, I believe 3 of Layne Norton's book. I have Fat Loss Forever, his competitive coaching book, as well as his reverse diet book. So I'm always going back and forth, bouncing off of those things whenever I get stuck on whenever I need further inspiration or instruction in my coaching endeavors. So I'm all over the place, but I'm just absorbing things from everywhere as I go along. Podcasts, I listen to our podcast. I listen to a couple of guys who happen to be in law enforcement, their podcasts, some jujitsu stuff, some real estate investment stuff, Bigger Pockets, and our podcast.
I have slacked off on the podcast a little bit. I still listen to Gary Vee. I listen to our stuff. Um, Jocko Willink's podcast is just called the Jocko Podcast. It starts off with no music, much like us.
We gotta get the music out of it, dude.
We gotta get. I got a epidemic sound, so we'll start having music somewhere. But books I'm reading, the same books I was trying to read and listen to a couple months ago are the same ones. Uh, Atomic Habits. Uh, like I said, I'm always a Gary Vee fan. Working through another leadership book by Jocko that's on Audible. I'm just trying to consume as much as I can on the leader. It's funny because I've been reading a lot of books on leadership. So even though I'm not a big, I'm not in a leadership position at my normal 9 to 5. That doesn't mean I can't read about leadership. So if that day does come where I'm thrust into a leadership position or I work myself up to a leadership position, I have at least some different thoughts in my mind on what leadership should look like. And also, when you're a coach, you're kind of a leader of a team.
Kind of. You kind of are. Your communication skills, your ability kind of to lead people and have them do what they're supposed to be doing at your direction. That's leadership right there.
So those are things I'm working through. But other than that, just trying to be a better person. I fail most days.
Listen, it said practice arts, right?
Mm-hmm.
The day you master an art is the day you're able to teach someone how to live life. And I don't think there's anybody on earth capable of doing that right now. Well,
I think
not on the level that I kind of mean.
I think my big issue is that I tend to live in the past a lot, and I tend to really get down over past decisions I made, and I'm trying to get out of that. I'm trying to get out of the what if phase. If I'm making any sense, I'm trying to get out of that. So it's been a struggle. It's been a big time struggle.
I don't think there are many people who don't kind of go back over their lives and look over decisions they made and be like, you know what, if I could have did A, B, or C, or if I had the time machine, if I would have grabbed myself by the shoulders as a younger person and shook myself out of the haze that I was in and guided myself to make better decisions. You always have those lingering doubts in your brain, but you always have to anchor yourself. Pull a Jedi saying, from Master Yoda, be mindful of your thoughts, because if you dwell on those thoughts, then you impact your ability for your current thoughts to guide your future. So, you can't let those, you have to let those thoughts come in, swirl around, go right back out and focus on the future. Because if you do too much of that, man, you're gonna have some anger and resentment towards yourself. Anger leads to fear. Fear leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Suffering is the path to the dark side. Master Yoga.
That's very true. And I think, like me, a lot of people aren't good at extending themselves grace and mercy. You know what I mean? You have to be good at that. You have to forgive yourself for the dumb shit that you've done, or even the dumb shit that you continue to do, and try to forge a better path. So it's something I actively work on.
Something we all should actively be working on, especially and that could translate into any aspects of your life, whether it be training, your academics, you trying to get a business started, your dieting. It's always one step in front of the other. And next thing you know, you build a foundation of positive steps to you're closer to your goals than you were to when you started. So it's life.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're going to get out of here, get our day started. I know your day is ending, so you're probably going to train and get a nap in.
Today is a rest day. It's super hot outside. We don't know what we're doing, but I'm going to be a guest in another podcast later on this afternoon. So I'm probably going to get some food, get some sleep, and see if I can get some clients done.
There you go. I know I got programming to do. Your programming included. I'm going to fuck you up.
Man, yeah, my second block is coming. I'm gonna take a deload week, and you got till the end of the week, man, to get me something good.
I'm going to fuck you up.
Ugh. Bring it.
So, chicken pound discount code. What is it?
Fit4duty fitness. Fit number 4 duty 10. So it's fit number 4 duty 10% off chicken pound.
Chickenpound.com gets you some fresh chicken from a world-renowned chef.
The muscle chef.
Yes, the muscle chef, Carlo Filipponi, former welterweight, middleweight champion.
I believe he was middleweight, Carlo was.
Yep.
Also put some pounds on him or took some pounds off of him.
Yep, IFBB Pro. Get your training gear, ironrebel.com, Larry B10. Larry B10, save some moolah, 10% off. They just dropped their Decades collection. So,
I have to check that out.
Use that discount code.
100%.
All right. So, for Vaughn the Teen, I'm Larry Brown. Thank you for listening to the Fit4duty Tenacity Strength podcast. We are on, where are we? Spotify and iTunes.
Spotify and iTunes.
So subscribe, take a listen, and we will be back next time. And hopefully we'll have a guest. I'm lining some people up, so don't think it'll just be us two talking all the time. So, all right, until next time, guys, y'all take care.